Today, I'm going to sit down with one of the most creative pastors I know. That's next on 41 Strong. Hey everyone, welcome to 41 Strong Podcast. Chuck Tate here. Great to have you with us today. 41 Strong is a podcast that delivers encouraging scriptures and stories to help people like you hold on and stand strong. Well, today I'm really excited about my guest because he's not just a guest, he's a good friend. He has been on 41 Strong before. He is a Brit and the only one that I call mate regularly. So, Andy King, welcome back to 41 Strong.
Thank you so much for being here, Chuck.
Yeah, so good to have you here.
Oh, no, I'm glad
So,
to be here.
I tell you what, I've known you for a lot of years, and you've preached at the church I lead, and I've preached at Mission Peoria, and you've been on my podcast, I've been on your podcast, but really we're just good friends, and over the last several months, we've really gotten to know each other more and become like fast friends.
Yeah.
And when we get together and we have a good time.
Yeah,
And we
we do.
we do a lot of laughing, and I know that we're going to be able to bring some of that today.
Yeah.
But one thing that I didn't realize in all the years that I knew you was how creative you are. I mean, you are one of the, not just the most creative pastors I know, but one of the most creative people I know. And I mean, I knew you were a good speaker, a good preacher, an excellent leader. You're the executive director of Dream Center Peoria. You've served on staff for years at Riverside Community Church Peoria. You've served on staff at Cross Point in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I knew all those things, but the more I got to know you closer, I realized you're a creative brain, man. And I don't think people realize that in the capacity that because I didn't until I got closer to you. But
Yeah, you find a lot of creatives are the guys behind the scenes, and so you see their work, but you don't see what goes on behind that. And so there are some incredible creatives, not just in the secular world, but church world, that you may never see or hear about because they are doing their art where no one sees it.
Sure. And yeah, behind the scenes, and they might be on a team at a large church, and not a lot of times they don't get credit
Right.
for what they're doing. They're
Right.
just they're part of a team, and the lead pastor might say, okay, you're not going to give everybody credit for this, but this is to advance the kingdom, preach the gospel. I'm not going to share. Oh, so I was in a meeting and Jimmy said to me,
Right.
"This would be a funny joke and a good segue into point number 3 of my sermon this week."
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just was I've been intrigued by that. Of course, you're a dad and husband, but you have 3 really creative kids. You have a daughter, 2 sons, and they're super creative. So my question right off the bat is, do they get their creativity from you, or do you get your creativity from them?
I think we work off of each other.
Okay.
For years, I've always been very creative. Even growing up in the UK, where church, when I was growing up back then, wasn't the thing to do. There was no Hillsong. There was no Matt Redmans and Deliriouses and guys that have brought the movement forward of God. Back then, it wasn't. So, I mean, the crazy things I used to do was, back in the day when there was no projectors, like small projectors you put on a table.
Yeah.
At my church in the UK, I had this massive, like 4 foot by 5 foot projector that unfolded, right?
Yeah.
And so I would edit videos, and that's when editing wasn't really cool on VHS.
Yeah.
But I would edit videos to go with my messages from movies, because the crowd that I was speaking to most of the time was a secular crowd. 1% go to church only once a year in the UK. In England.
Wow.
So you've got to attract people a little bit different. And so back then, 15, 16 years of age, I would have a VCR, I'd have the clip I wanted set, I'd be speaking, and then literally I would push play to show that clip and then end it, because I wanted people to remember a connection between what I was saying and something that they already knew.
Wow.
So that they would, whenever they saw that clip, whenever they heard that person, their mind would go directly back
Sure.
to, oh, that's what Andy was talking about in that preach.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've always had this creativity now with the creatives within our house. That now sparks creativity all the time. It also brings
Feed off each
yeah,
other. Yeah.
and it brings attention as well, right?
Okay.
We've got all got these great ideas, and so
Yeah.
we have to balance what's good.
Yeah,
and
good idea, good
stuff.
idea. You know what?
Yeah.
Go to your room.
Yeah, go. So yeah, we
Yeah.
feed off one another.
Sure.
So and that's the beauty of it. Ethan, my son, does all of the marketing creativity out at the Dream Center, and so he's full time doing that. So we've always said at the Dream Center, we don't want to just produce content or do things like other nonprofits. We want to do something a little bit different. We want to present events differently, not because we're wanting to be seen as the guys who can do it all, but we're trying to present a message of hope to people that they'll remember.
It's interesting. The slogan of our church is same message, different language. The gospel is the same. You marry the message, you date the method. So the method we can change, and we should change depending on the culture that we're trying to reach.
Yeah.
And the Apostle Paul said that he established common ground so he could preach the gospel, and that's really what I've seen you do. You establish common ground and connect the audience, the demographic that you're trying to reach. You speak their language and you connect with them, whether it's through humor or whether through its drama. It doesn't really matter, And that's the one thing that that I love about you is you are constantly speaking the language of the demographic. I mean, the church used to be notorious for just, always being 10 steps behind, right? And when obviously when you were in the UK, 1% go to church once a year. You better get their attention. Absolutely. I mean, if you don't get their attention, you might just forget it. I mean, you have to establish common ground, and obviously, if it's one-on-one, it's about relationship. Yes. But when it comes to reaching an audience, you have to speak their language. You have to get their attention. You have to use some type of hook, some type of bait, and that's what Jesus did. Jesus Absolutely. Told parables, and he talked about related, attached things that to their day that they were experiencing and that they were familiar with to get their attention. So, man. So relevance is important then.
It's massive because, again, people remember it. People also see a church that is not detached from a culture. That's massive. If there's churches that aren't addressing, for instance, the racism issue right now, then you need to look at how attached to the culture are you, right?
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
many ways you can do it, but right now the culture is crying out for answers, and the church can provide that. And so that is really important to be relevant in what is going on at this time, not just now in history, but 5 years from now there may be something else that comes up. The church has got to be ready to respond in a God solution, not in a we're going to fight.
Sure, we're not even in competition.
Correct. Yeah. We're going to present Jesus so that our culture can understand him.
That's good. Yeah. So times have changed from when you were editing on VHS tapes, and now, literally, you can do pretty much everything on your phone if you really want to. Yeah. I know there have been some films that have been completely shot and produced on an iPhone, which is fascinating to me. But my son's super creative, and he creates graphics and videos and photoshops and does everything from his phone. And just honestly, it blows my mind how easy it is to have just one device to be able. Not saying that you got to only use your phone to do it, but it's amazing what you can do and how far we've come from. When I was a youth pastor. I remember just being a young 19-year-old youth pastor. You'll get a kick out of this, but I used to do human videos. Remember those? And
Now let's stop there a minute. When in culture was that relevant? Like, has anyone ever seen a human video like on MTV or something like that? Like,
no.
but the church loves
So
it.
I called them, these pantomimes, and they were all Carmen songs. Witch's Invitation, The Champion, all those. And I used to, what's so funny is I used to do like one person human videos, and I would and I look back now and I'm like, what was I doing? It would, man, times have changed so much, and but I wanted to have smoke, right? But I didn't have the money to go and buy a really nice fog machine,
Yeah.
So I went through the want ads in the newspaper, and I found somebody was selling a homemade smoke machine.
Oh man.
So I bought it. But what I didn't know was when you turn it on, it makes this noise that sounds like this. I'm not exaggerating. And then it just kicks off the smoke, that noise. So I would try to set the scene, the mood before I would come out into the church. The lights would go off, the house lights. And then everybody would be sitting there in the dark and then hear, and be wondering, like, is there a tornado? Is there a tornado siren? And then they would start seeing the smoke, and then the lights would come on, and then I would come out to do this human video and not even know all the words. So, yeah.
I gotta say, I did play Jesus once in The Champion.
Did you? Oh, man. Well, I actually played Jesus a few times, and then I was actually I played one of the Thieves on the Cross at a big Passion play in Ohio, and then I played Satan in Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames. Remember that?
Yeah.
So anyway, so fun.
You'd be
But
a
growing
good
up,
devil.
I used to try to try to come up with just basically any creative idea to be able to speak to an audience. And looking back, I'm like, I missed it at times, but I've always been I want to be creative because I know that if I can use one thing that's connect, like you said, they're gonna that somebody in the audience will remember, they'll never forget, and they can tie that to a scripture or to a verse or to to Jesus. Then that's what it takes. And I think there's a lot of pastors out there, maybe some that are watching and listening today, and maybe they haven't. I mean, obviously, the gospel's number one,
Right.
But if you want people to listen, if you want people to pay attention, if you want people to remember, and if you want to help people apply, then you've got to be able to be creative in your delivery.
Absolutely. And here's another challenge I think that the church has, and non-profits in my world as well, is creativity does not start on the stage.
Mm-mm.
Creativity has to actually start.
If you could have told me that when I was doing those human videos, that would have been very helpful. The early '90s, if you could have just, what? It doesn't. You got to practice, Chuck. You got to.
Yeah.
It doesn't start. It doesn't start when they introduce you.
Right.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And where it's really important is from when someone is driving onto your property. Where does your creativity start there?
That's good.
How is the welcome? How are the people who are welcoming people? Are you taking carts out to the cars where there's kids coming and you're pulling kids into church because the kids will want to go back to that church that are having a free ride in a car? What type of creativity is there in the lobby area? Are people feeling welcomed? Because what we've done at churches is focused on the stage, but the connectivity and the creativity actually starts way before that.
Yeah, that's good.
And so when you start to look at how does the service as a whole feel? A whole means from your ushers, from your parking lot greeters. Are they happy to see people as they're pulling in? Because we lose a lot of people before they even get out of their cars.
Uh-oh. That'll preach. And we've experienced that. And it's so interesting that you should say that. Years ago, I mean, a long time ago, my wife and I went out to Charlotte, and I attended a pastors conference with Stephen Furtick, and it was limited to just 100 pastors, 150 pastors.
Look at you.
Real real intimate. Well, I was there to share some ideas with their creative team. I brought my smoke detector. And I'm not allowed on the property, but no. But no, one of the things that they helped me understand was how vital that first 10 minutes is, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some churches that they think the only thing that matters is what's said from the stage, and that can be further from the truth, because one of the things that I've always told our team over the last several years is we want to do such a great job those first 10 minutes. From the moment somebody pulls onto our property, they get out, they walk in, they're greeted, they are directed, if they have kids, to taken to the kids class, or whether they are heading up to the coffee bar to get a drink, that when they first walk in that sanctuary and the band is throwing it down, that first 10-minute experience, we want it to be so good that they have already made up their mind that they're coming back before I offend them.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the word.
Because you will.
Yeah, because I will.
No, but you're absolutely right. And there's like two stages of creativity in getting people to a church, right? That I think in the last 3 months, a lot of churches have had to wake up to.
Yeah.
And it's painting the picture before they even get in their car. What is the church going to feel and look like through an online experience? Right? I've said this to a lot of pastors. In the last 3 months during the pandemic, there's been a lot of church hopping.
Yeah.
Right? Anyone can go anywhere now. I was watching church services in Australia, in the UK, even in Germantown Hills.
Yeah.
Right? You guys, like during this 3 months, there's a lot of people who are like, okay, well, let's see what content is out there.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a connectivity that you need in an actual physical connection, but that message has to hit. And in the last 8-9 weeks, people have been able to really hear what pastors really believe. Right?
That's good.
Because they're not pulling from the crowd where emotions can get, and you can go, when you're preaching, you can go off a bit on a tangent because you're feeling the crowd and you feel like, I need to hang here a little bit, whether it's to do with family or to do with marriage, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's like two elements of creativity. There's the before you even get to church. What's your social media like? What's your engagement like during the week? Are you doing too much content? That's one of the biggest things that churches fall on, is they produce to the point where people just swipe.
Wow, you're right. Jeff Henderson in his book, the 4 book, talks a lot about that. If 90% of your posts are come see what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Rather than communicating to your people that you're for them, you're for the community.
Right. So there's the before, and then when you get there, from pulling into the parking lot and that whole thing. Creativity isn't just about what cool video could we show during a preach, right?
Wait, what? Okay.
But it's all about how do we package it to a way people will remember it and also be able to tell someone else about it. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's a real challenge for the church, of being culturally relevant, but staying within the Word of God.
Yeah.
But also being able to do it in a way that people then can tell others about, not about the church,
Yeah.
but about Jesus.
Amen.
You know what I
keep
mean?
the main theme, but you want to, connect with somebody so they will listen, so they can hear about the gospel. That's so good. Well, I know there's probably pastors and lay leaders that are listening, and I just want to say that so many pastors that were unfamiliar with technology and in creativity have done such a great job during this pandemic and learned how to live stream. I mean, our team has knocked it out of the park at improving every week and going from 1 camera to 3 cameras, from doing it live to pre-recording to post-production on the audio. We've learned so much. We have a lot more to learn, but I've also seen so many other pastors stepping up.
Yeah.
Because church is different now, and it's starting to get back, and a lot of churches are going to begin to open their doors again, but it's going to be different. So this is so vital. So for the pastor, before we wrap up today, for the pastor and leader that's watching or listening today, and they agree with you, and they're like, man, Andy, that's so true. We need to think about how it's packaged, everything from before to the actual service, sermon delivery, and perhaps they're going, but I'm not creative. I don't really know how to begin. What would you say?
The greatest way to tap into creativity is to first tap into who is around you. Your church members, the people who are around you. Have you given them the opportunity to show what they could bring to the table? The worst thing that people could do right now, especially churches, is actually go back to normal. To go back to the way we did things. Because I truly believe that during this time, it was not something that threw God for a loop. Like, God knew there was going to be a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that the churches were going to have to do something differently. So don't go back to normal as if this has been a headache, but actually build on it. And the way you build on it is now start looking within your congregation. When you can get back to people, you start asking around, is there anyone here that loves photography, has tinkered around photography or video? You don't do it for a living, but you want to be a part of our team. Or is there anyone here that loves social media, loves graphic design? Like, one of the things that we have at the Dream Center, a staff value, is give ministry back. Mm. And that whole concept is, as a staff, if all we are doing is the ministry, we've lost the plot.
Mm. That's good.
Our aim is to champion volunteers and to cheer them on and to find them and allow them to work within what God's placed in their heart. And so it does take a bit of investigating, but once you start tapping into people within your congregation, give them the freedom. That's crucial. Give them the freedom to come to the table and say, why don't we do this? Instead of doing buying a video, which you can buy videos and things, sure. And that's a great way through Life Church resources. There are thousands of things that you can do.
And Mosaic's a great resource.
Mosaic, who, we've been connected with quite a bit. We've gone out to their conferences. The way Mosaic, they have 2 to 3 staff members that are designed for creativity on staff, right? They're reaching millions across the world.
Yeah, and they're pastored by Erwin McManus. For those of you unfamiliar, Mosaic's a church in Los Angeles doing an incredible job of reaching people, period.
People, yeah, and they're right on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard. So they have got to be a bit creative, because the crowd that are coming in are from different industries, film, music, you name it, they're going there. But what they're brilliant at is, yes, they have 3 staff members that are coordinating the creativity. But they have 60 to 70 people that are volunteering just on their creative team.
Wow.
Right? This isn't, it's a I would say a church of 2 to 2,500 on campus.
Okay.
Right? Globally, though, they literally have hundreds of thousands of people tuning in every week. Mm. And would know some of their music. They have, Mosaic music. They've done a lot of songs and things like that. But the majority of that is from volunteers within the church. Wow. We were out there for a conference. One of the guys that I was with helps us with photography, so we took him out there. Great conference. By the way, you mentioned about the creatives never get seen. Mm. They did something at their conference that I thought was brilliant. out in the lobby, they created a glass perspex type of box. Okay, it was about 8 foot, 10 foot by 20 foot. And in the middle of this box, so everyone could see in it, right? In the middle of the box was probably 10 computers facing each other and chairs. And during the conference, video, photo, quotes, social media stuff was all being collected. And normally those creatives are thrown in a back room and said, go and create, right?
Mm-hmm.
Erwin wanted people to see the creatives created.
Wow.
He wanted everyone to see what goes in. So as 3,000 people came out of this conference, you now would go around this box and you could see the artwork coming in and the photos coming in and the editing going on and the videos being uploaded. And what he was doing was saying, we serve a creative God and we are creative beings.
Mm.
Let people see what we can create through God's inspiration. And so there you could see it in action.
Wow.
And so for the pastors, like,
So people were in these boxes.
people were in these
their
boxes editing,
Yeah.
and then you were seeing stuff fly out, and you'd look at your phone. That gal just created that. She took the
Wow.
time, she took the energy, she took a picture that may have not been great and was brought life to it.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Somebody's pushing a button and then and then the smoke was going. No,
But
yeah.
the crazy thing about that was what Erwin was doing was saying you matter.
That's
what
so good.
you do
I love that.
matters, right?
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage pastors to just start looking at who's in the church.
Yeah.
They
And
may not
maybe
be there yet.
who's in their home,
Exactly.
right?
What are the young generation that you're bringing up in the church, whether it's your sons, your daughters, or kids within the youth group? Give them a shot, right? The great thing about social media, we live in a TikTok world, a Snapchat world, where everything isn't perfect, right?
Yep. You're right.
Quality-wise.
Correct.
And so everything, there's platforms that you can get away with that. I wouldn't do that for your main Sunday.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can do that can really start to stir that creativity up within individuals in the church. And before you know it, you'll have a team that are creating content and, more importantly, bringing ideas to you as the pastor.
Yeah.
Right? For pastors, it's very hard to just keep churning out sermons. You need people to then come alongside you and say, I've got this idea for 41 will come.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's the idea. Here's the things I'm thinking. Now the creative team could take that away and then come back to you and say, we've taken that 41 will come. Now let's do this. Let's do. What about this idea? What about when I was at Crosspoint in Nashville, it's probably one of the most creative churches literally in the U.S. The pastor would give them the sermon, not the full amount, but like the different points and ending. He'd give it to them and say, breathe life into it.
Wow, that's good.
Then you would have 10, 15 people, with a whiteboard going, okay, could we do this? Could we have people take this away so they remember whenever they see something in their car or at home, they'll remember that.
Yeah,
that's where that comes from.
That's
It's
so
not
good.
the pastor bringing all that up.
Yeah.
It's the team.
Yes, that's good.
Lean into volunteers, lean into people in your church, and trust them.
All right.
That's.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Man, that's good stuff. I think I'll close this out by reading this quote from Erwin McManus, since we were talking about him. And I know that you mentioned his book earlier before we began the podcast, The Artisan Soul. Yeah. It's a great book to read. And I haven't read it. I've read several Erwin McManus books, but I've yet to read that one. But that's next on my list. But here's what he said. To deny our creative nature is to choose a life where we are less and thus responsible for less. We see ourselves as created beings, so we choose to survive. When we see ourselves as creative beings, we must instead create. Right. I mean, God's a creator, and he has empowered us, and he has gifted us to be able to create so we can reach people with the gospel.
Yeah, and you've always got to remember God's doing a new thing.
Amen.
there's always something new that he's doing. It's
Excellent.
not going to be the same. And so being able to breathe life into that is what he has wanted.
Excellent. Thanks, man. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, my guest has been Andy King. Our producer is Mike Sable. I'm Chuck Tate, and we will see you next week on 41 Strong.
PeoriaLife.com